Hello, my fellow readers. This is Dark Symphony 777 with another fan fiction review. As always, a link to the story will be in the description below. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, click on that bell for notification. Finally, listen to my opinion. My opinion is not indicative of the world, so please respect that. So, the story I am doing, well, stories are Under the Faraway Sky and Lost in the Moment. These are two stories by Sinbreaker. They are stories 2 and 3 of. I actually did the first story I think like a year ago. I did this story, Life Can Be Unfair. And so I decided, hey, I'm just gonna do the whole tetralogy and read all and review all 4. Don't worry, Too Late for Regrets is probably gonna get its own video. Hopefully after I finish Daily Equestria Life. Because it's taken so long to just read that because it's so long and tedious. And trust me, I'm gonna be tearing that story apart. But we're on these stories. So, what is the plot of these stories? Well, these two stories are technically follow-ups to Life Could Be Unfair. They take place sometime after that story. It's unknown how long it takes place. And it's the same with this one. And it just completely follows the continuing adventures of Celti Allocade or Kate Allocade. Under the Faraway Sky, it's more or less she just inadvertently hurts a guy named R&R. He refuses to give his actual name to her, so he just calling R&R, and heals her. And then he basically psychologically messes with her over the course of the story. And she's trying to figure out the ins and outs of her relationship with Dr. Vanitas. And this one, I literally just woke up, so just bear with me. So she wants to help R&R and all that, but she can't. Now she's basically trying to struggle on who to actually trust because of the whole thing. And she starts fights with Dr. Venus. There's not really much to these two stories, at least with like Life Can Be Unfair. There's like a point I can do. I can talk a little bit more about the plot, but this one kind of has an issue where this one really doesn't have much of a plot. This one does. This one actually has a plot, but this one is just random bullshit. The story, and that can be fine. Like at least Life Could Be Unfair. That had some amount of just random stuff happening. That was more of a lackadaisical thing until near the end. But this one is just random little mini adventures centered around Kate and her like having been messed around with by R&R, and then he meets everything and anything. It's just a really weird story. Correct. I hate doing these reviews when I'm like completely awake. Well, not completely awake yet. And it's an okay plot. I mean, for not every story is gonna need like these complicated plots. Sometimes you just want some random stuff happening, especially if you're going on a multi-story thing. Like sooner or later you're gonna come across this thing where it's like nothing really happens. This honestly feels more like this is trying to be its own thing, but more trying to set up this and possibly this. Lost in a Moment, on the other hand, this one does have a plot. So this one kind of follows up on the end of this story. Basically, Dr. Finitas reveals to R&R that he kind of knew that not only that he knew Celty was Kate, but he's the one who brought her in here in the first place because he wanted to make her an Enerjack. And she felt very betrayed because, hey, you don't really love me. And you're doing all this because you don't love me. It's like, no, I love you. I love you a lot. It's like, then why would you do this? For the Enerjack, of course, so that way you can burn the world. And that's more or less what happens for like the bulk of the story. Basically, Kate kind of originally doing her own thing, and then she finds out that Finitas knew basically the whole thing with her being human and let her in. And basically, he did all that because he wanted someone to be the next Enerjack. And ultimately, they do fight, but then she ultimately agrees to it because she loves him. Yeah, I don't get that either. And eventually, they come up with this whole plan. Cases updates on her cybernetics because she's like her limbs are like gone, basically like peacock looking shit. I have a feel. I just realized I have a feeling this author got inspired by Peacock from Skullgirls for the whole robotic limbs thing because that's like it's like her thing. That better be taken apart and you turn into a hole. Peacock, no, Patricia, why are you doing this? Because I got a hole to own a. That pun. That pun made no sense. Of course it didn't. I Peacock. I don't make any sense. Don't know what my mind went right in the gutter. Uh. So basically, they set up this whole plot. They have everything ready. However, Vanitas inadvertently kind of gets sucked, kind of becomes the Enerjack. He kind of lands on, he kind of gets bumps into the crystal and gets the energy. It turns into this. This is what he looks like. And then, like, all of his workers, like Scourge and the other Destructress and Rosie the Rascal. I actually never heard of Rosie the Rascal until reading the story. I had to actually look her up. And it's like, no, you're going too far with this. It's like, no, we're gonna stop you. And them and Knuckles and the Chaotix and Kate and everyone like team up. But he places like a protection on the Master Emerald that in order for someone to get rid of the X, they have to actually kill themselves. Kate actually accepts responsibility for that, sacrifices her life, but she runs into anything and everything in heaven. Basically, it's like, I'm here to take you to the afterlife, to heaven, on Earth. And Kate's like, no, can I stay here? Goes, well, you did sacrifice your life to save the world. So I figured, okay, maybe. All right, I'll do it. But you can't go. But when you do this, you're stuck here. No return to Earth ever again. Okay. Oh, can you give me back my robotics? Sure. And then the story just kind of ends with Kate going back to Finitas' lair. There's literally no one there except for Finitas and Dimitri, and sometimes Rosie. Everyone's left because they're like, nah, we didn't shit anymore. And it also ends with a sequel hook of like a robot waking up. But that's really it. So what do I think of these two plots? I don't really like this plot. I'll talk about it more when I get to pacing. There's a very specific reason why I don't like this plot. But this one is like very basic. I think for what this plot is trying to do, it's all right. There's not really much you could do with such a simple plot that really wouldn't be that you couldn't really extend it that long. Like it's only 23, 24,000 words. That one's 25. No, 27. My bad. So I can't really think much of any way to properly extend the story that much. I think it's fine. Characters. There's really like two characters, and that's Celti and Vanitas. There are the other characters, but they don't really matter that much. They don't appear as much in this story than they do in the first story. There is R&R, but he's kind of there. Same thing with anything and everything. They're more manifestations, more or less. Like I guess you can call them Kate's angel and devil sort of thing. So they're there, but they're not really there. If that makes any sense. No, I'm making any more sense to myself. But Dr. Finitas is very underwhelming. Kate, she didn't really have that charm she had in the first story in these stories, mainly because she kind of takes like she kind of weirdly playing a bit role with this in Faraway Sky. Lost in a Moment, she kind of has like just like a basic character arc of just all right. She doesn't really have a character arc. She just kind of exists in this story, so she doesn't really have a lot of the charm in Life Can Be Unfair that kind of made me kind of like her. She's more or less just doesn't really push her character. If you're gonna do stories that are multiple parts, you need to actually continue the character development, and these two stories don't really do that. She does get like some character moments, but nothing that really fully continues and evolves her character over time. It's just she's kind of in like a staying pattern. She doesn't really get any better. She doesn't really get any worse, and you don't really want that. Grammar wise, these stories have like a button. This story has like a bunch of grammar. This one's kind of better. Well, this one is better. This one's like really better. But this one has like a lot of grammar errors. Specifically Dimitri, she keeps getting typing and spelling Dimitri without that first I. So it comes out like Dimitri. Me or like Mitri. It's so weird. How it's like this author never realized she kept misspelling Dimitri. But hey, it exists. The sentence wise, I will say that you can actually see improvement from these two stories. Like this one has really bad writing. This one has really, really amateurish writing. But with this one, you can actually see there is an improvement. It's much clearer. You can tell the author put more thoughts in using specific words to enhance the story. Making more sentences and words count. You can see that there is an improvement between Life Can Be Unfair and Under the Faraway Sky. You can't really see that improvement between Faraway Sky and Lost in the Moment. There is an improvement. Pace wise, here's the thing I have to say, and really my one solid complaint about these two stories. They are way too short. This one, Life Lost in the Moment, kind of has an excuse because it's more meant to be a short story. There's not really a lot you can do to make this story longer. But with Under the Faraway Sky, this has a really, really bad problem where the story is so condensed that a lot of the moments that the author is trying to set up to be impactful doesn't have that level of impact because they're so bunched together that they kind of just collide with each other and they kind of make these individual moments weaker. So what happens is, so you have, Salty waking up, and then immediately you have stupid goddamn. Then she immediately, she goes out with lightning, inadvertently hits R&R with the bow and arrow, something simple stuff. And then it's just like, oh, I'm R&R. He has no aura. And then, Rosie just shows up unannounced, attacks everyone, and then all of a sudden she's just like, friends. And she kind of just hangs out with Stealthy a lot. Which is fine. But then we get like all these moments that are just so bunched together over and over again after Rosie shows up that they don't resonate. They don't give as much emotional impact as the author wants you to do, because there's just no time between them. But don't worry, this is more or less an amateurish thing, because a lot of authors do like to have like very short stories, because they're not skilled enough at this point in time to properly pace things out and give more investment. They rather just have here's like as quick as you can with these moments. They kind of just hammer home the point. Like I said, it's really only in this story, Lost in the Moment. I don't really have anything wrong with this. There is some big moments, but they're actually spaced out more, so there is actual investment. Granted, near the end, the whole thing with like, it is kind of quick, but I can at least excuse that because of the circumstances in story, with like everyone having to think that they need to keep Phineas from leaving the Master Emerald Shrine. So it's like all these moments kind of have to happen quickly. So I can at least I can give it out to Sindbreaker for that. So would I recommend these two stories? Under the Faraway Sky, as it is written right now, no, I can't. As much as I would want to, because I gave it out to Life Can Be Fair, because I chalked that one up to begin, something that the author is just, starting out and trying to figure things out. I can't give the same concession to the second story, where nothing has been improved. Like, if there was some improvement, okay, I can see it. But as Faraway Sky right now, I can't. Lost in the Moment, in the other hand, I can give a recommendation to. It's not the biggest story, it's not the flashiest story, but you can see that there is an actual improvement on the writing and the sentence structure. There is some actual character moments that do actually try to resonate. Some of them don't work out, but there is actually an attempt to space everything out, to give a more thought out story. Even if this one's shorter, it does a lot. It is a much better story on the overhaul in terms of quality and all that. So Faraway Sky, can't recommend. Lost in a Moment, I would recommend, simply for witnessing the growth of the author. Would I have my favorite moment? I don't really have a favorite moment. That's fine, but that's fine. What would I change? There is only one thing I would change about both these stories, and that is extend them. You have the whole point of the characters. You have the whole point of the plot. You have certain key moments already. They just need to be better paced between them. This one, you don't need to extend as much. Really just extend maybe the first chapter or two. They kind of give them more depth. Like, you can tell that there was more time between Faraway Sky and Lost in the Moment. And apparently certain arcs in the comics happen. That's like one thing I don't like about the fact that the Sonic fanfiction page has like both takes place with like the games and the comics, but they're like two separate things. Makes me wish that they added a Sonic the Hedgehog page on the comics section, so that way you can at least, that way people will like be less confused. So for this story in particular, both stories at the beginning, add like little details that kind of explain anything that happens between the stories. You can just kind of make it up. Maybe add like canon comic events, just summarizations. Doesn't really need to add anything, but does a sort of get you up to speed sort of deal. But with this story, needs to be extended. I think this story needs like a couple, probably like 20-30,000 words, just to and just place some between each individual big moments. So that way each moment can have more impact. Maybe add a few parts where it's telling the point of view from Dr. Finitas. I think that would actually work in this story. The other two stories, they wouldn't work adding Dr. Finitas' point of view because they're meant to be solely focused on Kate. But this story, I can easily see a few parts in the story where it's just told from Finitas' point of view. And I think that's really it. Because there's nothing inherently wrong with this story. It's just clustered together. And that's really it. There's not really much else I can say about these stories. Because how much can I say? Just extend the story. I don't know if the author is going to watch this video. I don't know if the author is going to like maybe. I would at least say remake these stories. I am going to review this story too, but this one's going to be by itself. Mainly because I need another buffer for daily equestrian life just in case. But yeah, that is Under the Faraway Sky and Lost to the Moment. I don't really have anything more to say about these stories. This has been Dark Symphony 777, and cut.